All right. All praise, glory, and honors most certainly due to the Most High. Yeah. Elohim of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I want to say peace to you in the name of his son. I always count it a blessing each and every single time that I can come before you to preach, bring you the word, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. All right, brothers and sisters. In today's message, um, I want to deal with Juneteenth. And the reason I want to deal with Juneteenth is because this weekend is the time during which people were celebrating Juneteenth. And so in the midst of all these celebrations, what you find is uh, a bunch of a bunch of people that were doing harm. So now this is what do we have Juneteenth? We had Juneteenth. Let me go back a little bit. What does Juneteenth commemorate? Juneteenth commemorates, it's become a national holiday. That happened in 2021. But just on the surface, it was a symbolic ploy just to placate to black people, descendants of slaves in the United States, because that actually is that was a regional commemoration of a particular day. That was not a national day in which blacks just found that they were free. I want to read something to you before I get to the shenanigans that go on. And condolences to all those who have lost loved ones. Anytime uh, these days have or people have come together on these days, and then people have gotten killed. This is from Time Magazine. It said, "When did slavery really end in the U.S.? The complicated history of Juneteenth." All right. So now it says, now this is from an article about Olivia Waxman from June 15, 2023. It says the push to make Juneteenth a federal holiday, which successfully led to the first national Juneteenth observance last year. Remember, this was from 2023. Brought a new wave of attention to the history behind this celebration. That on June 19th, 1865, enslaved men and women in Texas found out weeks after the Civil War ended that they were free. And the Union Army's Major General Gordon Granger issued General Order Number 3. Quote, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free," unquote. That's, first of all, that was in Texas. That wasn't nationally that took place, June 19th. As a matter of fact, my grandparents are from a place in Alabama. When I was a little child, up until I was probably about 12 or 13, we would go there every year to commemorate the time that they found out in that particular area that they were free. It wasn't June 19th, it was May 28th. That was the time when they found out in that particular area. So this article goes on to say, there are multiple dates that could be singled out depending on the geographic location of the enslaved person. The Civil War fought over slavery ended in April 1865, but the end of slavery was more like a process rather than an event that occurred on a particular day. So again, why would they give us that day? Because instead of true, actual, tangible things you could put your hands on, like reparations, they give Negroes things like that are symbolic. And hey, here's another day in which you can barbecue. And see, you could tell we are lost people because the things that go on the times that when we do come together. So on this particular day, if you look every year, somebody's getting shot. I just want to go back a few years. So this is 2022, 15-year-old boy killed, 3 injured after shooting at Juneteenth music festival in DC. You had a music festival to commemorate freedom and somebody getting shot. 2023. Here, 4 people killed, dozens injured in chaotic night of mass shootings. Notice it said across the country. Okay. This is what was going on. It says at least 4 people were killed and more than 24 others were injured in shootings in Illinois, Missouri, and Washington State in a deadly night of gun violence. At least 1 person was killed and 22 more were injured at a strip mall in Willowbrook, Illinois, a southwest suburb of Chicago. police said. Authorities described the gathering as a peaceful celebration of Juneteenth that began at 6 p.m. Saturday. Okay, so now what happened over this weekend? This in Texas, 2 killed in shooting at Juneteenth celebration amid weekend of violence that left dozens wounded. A spate of shootings over the Father's Day weekend also included an incident in which 7 people were shot at a car club meetup in Massachusetts. But if you go down and look, it says here, an altercation between 2 groups of people exploded into gunfire at a free Juneteenth festival, co-hosted by the city Round Rock police said. So now you have all of this going on, and the reality is this. You weren't really, Black people, that's not real freedom. Okay? That's not real freedom. We don't really understand what true freedom is. I want to pick it up. First of all, let's establish something here in Deuteronomy 28. Because one of the main problems is the fact that we don't have a clue of who we are. This is Deuteronomy the 28th chapter. And in Deuteronomy the 28th chapter, and I would advise you to read the whole chapter. I would advise you to read the whole chapter, because in this chapter, it tells you the blessings and cursings upon Israel. Blessings and life for obedience, cursings and death for disobedience. So when you start from the 15th verse on down to verse 68, you will find all the curses upon his people. And what are the curses? Hey, wherever you go, you'll be cursed, whether you're in the city, whether you're in the field. Your children will be cursed. Your wives will be raped. Your children will be sold. You're gonna be sold into slavery. You're gonna have all kind of racial epithets on you. And it says in verse 45 of Deuteronomy 28 and 45, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee and pursue thee. It shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So these curses are going to be upon you. The ultimate curse, if you don't really get this, you don't really understand. This is verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Egypt is synonymous with bondage. So he says his people are going into slavery by way of ships. Okay, which is how we got here, which is how we got in the Caribbean, which is how we got to Central and in South America. So he said, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So his people went into slavery by way of slave ships, and they were sold as slaves. Okay, that's what happened, and so that's a part of the curse, that you'll be sold as slaves. Now, let's go real quick, because I want to read something else here in Deuteronomy 21, just to show you. It says the sign of the cursed. 21, Deuteronomy 21 and 22. And if a man have committed a sin worthy of death, and he be put to death, and thou hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any wise bury him that day, for he that is hanged is accursed of God. So the one that's hanged on the tree is a curse of God, is the accursed of God. Just like Jesus was hanged on the tree, and he took the curse that was supposed to be upon us upon himself. The fact that we've been hanging on these trees is a sign that we are the accursed of God. We're not inferior to other people, but when we are his chosen people who have sinned against him, and therefore he cursed us. And the ultimate culmination of that was a dispersion throughout the world as slaves, and by way or via slave ships. That's what happened unto us. Okay, so now you can talk about, we may not be in chattel slavery, we might just be wage slaves, right? Who lack knowledge of self right now in a land that is not ours. Our minds poisoned with what we received here in the American diaspora. But the reality is, you are really not free if you never went home. You're still in the land of captivity. Let's go to, just to show you that, let's go to Ezra. Because at one time, Israel, They were in and out of captivity. Okay, in exile. So you had it with the 10 tribes. They went in and they never returned. But Judah in 586, they went in waves prior to that into Babylon. And then in 586, that was one with Nebuchadnezzar. He destroyed Jerusalem, burned the temple, and what happened? He removed them. Eventually, during the Medo-Persian Empire, they were able to do what? Come out of captivity. They went, and it wasn't just, okay, it took some chains off you. No, you went back home. This is let's pick this up here. I want to just read this couple verses, actually one verse here in Ezra, the 2nd chapter, because it's in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah that they were able to go home. It says in Ezra 2:1, now these are the children of the province that went up out of the captivity of those which had been carried away, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away unto Babylon, and came again unto Jerusalem and Judah, every one unto his city. So they went home. They went home. But now, what happened during the time of the Roman Empire? During the time of the Roman Empire, the children of Israel were taken into captivity again. And that was the last captivity. That particular captivity, when they went into that captivity, what happened after that was they went into the interior of Africa and then was sold. That's how you got on ships. They first entered into I'm gonna read this here. This is Luke 21. Because these are the words of the Messiah. He says here concerning his people, and when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. He said, but woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. Now he says in verse 24, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So, yeah, you might not be wearing chains and picking cotton. You still are in captivity, in exile. You've never been home. Remember, we read in Ezra, when they went home, hey, it told this. And then if you keep reading, it gives you basically a list of people that were able to go back. History tells you that as well. If you ever read about like Cyrus, he put a lot of that into motion. So if you have not gone home, you are still a slave. You're really not free. If you don't have land, you're really not free. And I'm not talking about you thinking you have a land when you have a mortgage here in the United States and I own this land. Yeah, you own it till you don't pay taxes. Then you find out who owns it. I'm talking about when you really have your own land, when you really have your own nation. This is actual freedom. And when you have self-determination to determine what happens on the land that you have, that you possess, and that your children will possess after you, this is true freedom. This is the only true freedom. It doesn't come through vote. That's not how you get freedom. This is let's go to, so he said, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. That's at the end of the days when his people are returning. He's gonna gather his people back into the land. I want to read something else that speaks to you going home and that signifying freedom. This is Leviticus, the 25th chapter. Leviticus, and when you read this from a biblical perspective, you understand that people that are talking really don't understand what freedom is. This is concerning the 50th year of Jubilee. Now, this is Leviticus 25 and verse 8. It says, and thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years, and the space of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. And the day of atonement shall ye make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. Now, notice what happens on this day in this 50th year. And this will happen once every 50 years. And ye shall hallow the 50th year, proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family. So it was a year of release. It was a year of liberty, and everybody was going home. The slave was no longer a slave, and if you lost your land, you got that land back. Now I'm talking about amongst Israel. If for whatever reason you fell into poverty and you sold that land, you would get your land back. You went back to your nativity. You went back to wherever you were from. That is what's going to happen when the Lord returns. Let's go to the book of Isaiah. Actually, let's pick it up in Matthew, the 24th chapter, because he tells you in the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. They're going into slavery. Well, you're going to come out of slavery, his people, who are black people that have been scattered into slavery all over the world. Not all black people, a specific Semitic people that have been scattered into slavery via the transatlantic slave trade. So he said, Matthew, the 24th chapter, verse 29. He said, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give a light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. This is the sign of the return of the Messiah. Because they asked him, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of that coming and of the end of the world? Because when he told them earlier, he told them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. That's when they said, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of that coming and of the end of the world? So he's telling you ultimately what's going to happen, even beyond the ransacking of Jerusalem and his people going into captivity. He's telling you what's going to happen even when he returns. When he returns, what is he going to do? Verse 30, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So he's going to return. And notice what it says here, verse 31. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds. Who are his elect? The elect are the chosen. Now he's gathering them when he returns. Notice something. He didn't say anything is going to happen in 1948. That's a farce. Those are not the real people. Don't you think those people were the ones in Egypt in bondage? That's a lie. They don't fit any of the descriptions. And he said, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other, because that's where they're scattered. Because he said you're going into slavery by way of slave ships. You're going to be sold as bondmen and bondwomen. And that's how we got here. Let's go to Isaiah, because Isaiah prophesied of this. Isaiah, the 13th chapter. Isaiah, the 13th chapter, and we'll pick it up at verse 9. It says, behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger. That's why the tribes of the earth shall mourn. And then he says, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. Wait a minute. That sounds like what we just read in Matthew 24 when the Lord returns, because this is what Isaiah is prophesying of. And the sun shall be darkened and is going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. And I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place, and the wrath of the Lord of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. So there's going to be a mighty earthquake, right? You're going to have the stars of heaven and the constellation thereof shall not give a light, and the sun shall be darkened and is going forth, and the moon shall not cause a light to shine. Notice what it says in verse 14. And it shall be as a chased roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee every one into his own land. What? That sounds like what we read in Leviticus 25. Because everybody's going home, and Israel is going home then. That's when you're going home. It didn't happen, and understand, you have been scattered. That's why even, well, let's go to Jeremiah, the 16th chapter. Well, hold on, before I go there, let's go to 1 Kings 8. Because even in this prayer, I read this prayer This is a prayer dedication of the temple that was eventually destroyed. He said something. He said when he's dedicating the temple, this is Solomon, he makes this prayer and it was confirmed divinely. You read later. He said, if that, in verse 46, I'm in 1 Kings 8 and 46, if they sin against thee, for there is no man that sinneth not, and thou be angry with them and deliver them to the enemy, so that they carry them away captives unto the land of their enemy, far or near. Just like what happened to us. He said, yeah, if they shall bethink themselves in the land whither they were carried captives, and repent and make supplication unto thee in the land of them that carried them captives. That's what we need to do. He said, saying, we have sinned and have done perversely, we have committed wickedness. And so return unto thee with all their heart and with all their soul in the land of their enemies, which led them away captive, and pray unto thee toward their land, which thou gavest unto their fathers, the city which thou hast chosen, and the house which I have built for thy name. Then hear thou their prayer and their supplication in heaven thy dwelling place, and maintain their cause. And forgive thy people that have sinned against thee, and all their transgressions wherein they have transgressed against thee, and give them compassion before them who carry them captive, that they may have compassion on them. And this is just another example here. Let's go to the book of Daniel, because that's what Daniel did when he was in captivity. That's what Daniel did when he was in captivity. Let's pick it up in the book of Daniel. And this is Daniel chapter, give me 1 second, let me get there. I want to say Daniel. One second, because he was we actually want to read this. Should read this first. This is Daniel. I want to read this here. Daniel chapter 1, where it says, and it says, and the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, I'm in verse 3, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seed and of the princes, children of whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding, science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldees. Okay, so now they became, and Daniel was amongst them. He was a royal lineage, and he became like many of us end up doing. You become perfect, perfect servants of the state or of the power or whoever took you into captivity. That's what we did. That's why we celebrate the first Negro to do this, the first Negro in America to do that, the first to and what you are. You're just a resource that was stolen, and now you're benefiting the country. Okay, but now I want to talk that. I just want to read that he was an Israelite that was taken into captivity, so he's in exile. But notice what happens in exile. Give me 1 second. This is in Daniel, the 9th chapter. And so he says in verse 3 of 9 and 3, and I set my face unto the Lord to seek prayer and supplication with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. And I prayed unto the Lord my God and made my confession and said, O Lord, the great and dreadful God, keeping the covenant and mercy to them that love him and to them that keep his commandments. We have sinned and have, who is we? He's talking about the nation. We have sinned and have committed iniquity and have done wickedly and have rebelled even by departing from thy precepts and from thy judgments. Okay. Neither have we hearkened unto thy servants, the prophets, which spake in thy name to our kings, our princes, and our fathers, and to all the people of the land. That's how we got in this situation. That's what he's saying. So he's acknowledging this, and you read another place, he was always praying toward where? Jerusalem, which is what that prayer of dedication said to do in the book that we were reading about Solomon in First Kings. But now I just wanted to read this because he did the same thing, but it was just him doing it. And eventually he prayed toward that place, but eventually they were able to go back. See, when you are coming out of captivity for real, you going home. And that's what's going to happen when the Lord returns. He's taking his people home. Let's go to Jeremiah, the 16th chapter. Jeremiah, the 16th chapter. See, it's not about Juneteenth. That's a regional celebration to begin with, and it's not real freedom. That's our problem now. We don't know who we are. We don't know what real freedom is. We don't know who the Most High is. We don't know how to worship him. And we got a bunch of false prophets and terrible compromised leaders. But this is Jeremiah 16 and verse 14. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be said, the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and from all the lands whither he hath driven them. And I will bring them again into the land that I gave unto their fathers. See, you got to go home to be free. If you haven't been home, it's like kind of like somebody take an individual person, kidnap them, tie them up, put them in a truck, then take them 5 states over, and they got them in their house. And then they let the person loose in the house, take off the rope, right? Take off the blindfold, right? Take the tape off their mouth, and they let them walk around the house. You can't talk about I'm free. You still in the house of your kidnapper. How are you free? You're not free. You couldn't possibly be. This is last place, Jeremiah 31. Jeremiah 31 and 10. He said, hear the word of the Lord, O ye nations, and declare it in the isles afar off, and say, he that scattered Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd doth his flock. See, that's what he's going to do. He's going to regather his people. So true freedom doesn't have anything to do with Juneteenth. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to remind you that we at the Household of Faith meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel. And so if you're in the area of the Chicago metropolitan area, come worship with us. In addition to that, we also have a congregation in Stafford, Virginia. And in Stafford, Virginia, we meet at the Red Roof Inn at 153 Garrisonville Road every Sabbath, which is Saturday, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that, brothers and sisters,